What's up, world? It's your boy King Lack, man. It's going down again, August 26th. Tune in to G County Word on the Streets. You don't want to miss it. New Nation Radio, Wiz Radio.
Leaving all the competition in the dust.
Most of the world's deceptions, our collective ideals and perceptions of reality, are controlled by the wealthy evil elite of the New World Order, the Illuminati, or Synagogue of Satan to some. I've already mentioned in other material many of the groups involved. Even if you don't believe in spiritual influences in the world, they definitely do. In fact, it's knowledge to them, not belief or faith, and it's the reason for the all-seeing eye of the Watchers, as in the Book of Enoch, or Lucifer, at the top of the pyramid. Satanists have been offering human sacrifices since prehistory, particularly of infants, yet are often very well educated. I mostly refer to the secret societies of the collegiate level on upward, though only specific bloodlines are generally included. They're well aware of the parallel universe theories, superstrings, extra dimensions of quantum or particle physics, hypercube tesseracts, and far more. And still they offer human sacrifices, offering others instead of themselves as Christians and similar faiths do. That's the distinct difference between Christianity and Satanism, martyr or murderer. You can give your life freely to Jesus, or you can sell your soul to the devil and continue to sacrifice others in your stead. You'll find I'm hardly the only one pointing out the human sacrifices if you look for the material, though, like the temples of Baal or Baal that were proposed for reconstruction. They're softening everyone up to Satanism with television, culture, and even architecture, where possible. And as I've said, Catholicism, Judaism, and other mainstream religions have a dark side of sacrificial evil buried within them, as well as the Satanic Church being created by the Illuminati as an antithetical tool to further diminish the Christian ethic in society, the sacrificing of self, as well as manipulate the masses with. I doubt most Satanists are even of an Illuminati bloodline. Anyone who's not is a tool or human cattle to the evil elite. Just to quickly illustrate subtle manipulation of so-called science, it's no coincidence the Australopithecus hominid was named Lucy after the fallen angel Lucifer. Get it? Lucifer. She's pretty furry. There's also a movie called Lucy we could go on about and analyze about how a man can be his own god, basically, especially references to the Mafia and MK Ultra-based programming that I mentioned before. The movie refers directly to the hominid Lucy, and Scarlet isn't the name of a Masonic red woman for nothing. It's also the color of blood, not to digress. My point is they've been creating distortions of truth about human history, and Lucy is just a cover story for what the Illuminati know isn't true. Fabrications of history also include distorting truth about our universe and origins as well. The demon friends of the elite are not coming from some other planet of a distant star. It's part of the deception to say the governments are working with aliens, the real reason for the Rockefeller-funded NWO Disclosure Project. Though there is a partial truth still hidden about gray aliens, abductions, hybridization, and more, it's mostly a spiritual deception, though. It does stand to reason that humanity wasn't necessarily the first to come along, and given how advanced our technology is, it's not that difficult to imagine another race, even from another universe, let alone a galaxy, being advanced enough to create entire universes. That means they're also responsible for the laws of physics and all else. But in this case, their demon friends, the fallen angels, were spiritually bound in the earth long ago for tampering with our species, if you read the Bible, Enoch, and other scriptures. The Satan most of the confused and distempered people follow, Lucifer, Venus, Semiramis, Set, Diana the Wiccan Witch of the West, yes, I said Wiccan, Xenu the Scientology space alien, or whomever you like, generally refers to the leader of the fallen angels and is mentioned in the Bible and elsewhere. but can also generically refer to the entire body of the Watchers and the unkillable spirits of their demon offspring, the Nephilim. It's that spiritual side in all of us that exists beyond the body and where all the ideas of heaven and hell really came from in the first place. Most scientific theories of the cosmos may be true, if a stretched truth in a lot of cases, of timescales and distances mainly, just as they lie about Lucy and how old she is. A creator, intelligent design to some, is not just purposely left out of the equation. The idea is completely downplayed to childish insignificance. I know many will say you can't factor in what doesn't exist, but that is what science is for, proving the existence of the heretofore unknown, and often by using some indirectly observable phenomenon to do it. Gravity is a good example. We can do that for God by looking at parallels and similarities in world belief systems and the source of those beliefs. I know a lot of people struggle with reconciling God in an age of clinically detached, left-brained, sterilized science taught through an indoctrination process created by the ultra-elite. The establishment of the hairy eyeball is keeping anything resembling intelligent design from all levels of education on purpose. Even the consideration of ideas that would seem pretty common in a philosophy class. Professors have been fired for attempting to teach ideas that might lend themselves to intelligent design or a creator, even if only thought of as a force of nature. There are certain ideas the Illuminati, who are very much Satanists and Luciferians, quash and quell because those ideas generally lend themselves to the notion of God. If you want examples, watch that Ben Stein movie, Expelled. No intelligence allowed, for one. There are plenty of sources.
The difference is clear. Clear eyes.
Before we look at some of the ancient theories of the cosmos, though, let's just define the spirituality we know as simplistically as possible by saying that there is a spirit of good and of evil, a yin and yang if you want, or some other metaphorical balance that people could adhere themselves to, though Satanists often consider themselves the balance versus good in the world. Western culture has defined it mainly as God versus devil, or good versus evil. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all have their roots in a base faith stemming from before Nimrod, the Tower of Babel in Babylon, and it's no coincidence that fallen angels, Anunnaki, or star gods, figure into worldwide religions along with a war of good versus evil. The spiritual beings of light, so many have termed angels, are who the Bible conveys we were created in the image of, as do other religions. Their spirituality is a part of us, though we're still, no coincidence, 66% animal. Lucifer is one name of the leader of the fallen ones whom the Illuminati follow, and in making him their god on earth, their war against the Creator, brought about a spiritual war of minds most have no clue is happening. Basically, they're trying to drive everyone toward an evil mindset and spirit, or soul, where anything goes, and the more of an animal we are, the less apt we are to notice it. That's why the Illuminati try to keep the public in a base form of consciousness and lessen the emotionally developed forebrain. People are kept as children longer and longer into their lives. From the top down, it's a masonically controlled social construct. They created the me generation, and X is the mark of the beast for Generation X. The torch metaphors the Illuminati often convey are partly about man becoming evil once he knew of fire and our technology grew, mostly because of war, from swords to cannons. But the torch symbolism includes Lucifer himself, or Prometheus to some, as well as numerous other symbols. Lucifer and his reprobate ilk, the fallen angels, have sometimes been termed watchers or even keepers. After a war in heaven, the fallen ones were cast down and bound in the earth for their transgressions and would be called watchers by Enoch and others. Many feel these are interplanetary beings with spaceships, just TV aliens really. And the Bible is merely interpreting it incorrectly, especially when incorporating Hinduism, Vimanas, and whatnot. Well, they're not ancient aliens, as many people have already debunked. And before I get too far, let me reiterate that God sent the world off babbling during Nimrod's time, and all the world's religions, myths, and tales stem from one place in prehistory. So whether it's Greek, Viking, Chinese, Indian, or any culture, you'll notice many similarities if told differently. Pantheons of divine beings from the stars or heaven, their abilities, giants, dragons, and even the story of Noah. I've been over the basics and other material. Freemasons, Satanists, and others, at least at their power bases, continue to believe in Lucifer and Satan because they deal with these beings of light who can dispense knowledge if bargained with. Hence the continuation of rituals. This isn't just a Western philosophy. And again, refer to the Phony Disclosure Project. Enoch said they could take human form. Aleister Crowley had his lam or lamb, another word for attack, and you can also read comments on demonology from other Freemasons like Manly P. Hall or Albert Pike. This is why Masons are taught to seek the light, as Lucifer is a spirit of light. This is how people are being deceived about gray aliens, MK Ultra, or other mind control versus demonic possession, who the Nephilim are, and even that the beast is the devil when it's really our own spiritual selves in a larger sense. When we speak of demonic possession, it generally refers to spiritual possession by one or more Nephilim children of fallen angels, or giants, if you see my other material about it, or read Enoch, Joshua, Jubilees, or the Book of Giants, as well as the Bible. Their spirits are not giant, by the way, only their material forms were. There were thousands of giants of various sizes created before God destroyed them with the deluge, so there's plenty of demonic influence to go around in spiritual form. The Book of Jubilees talks about them being dissimilar, warring amongst themselves and causing war amongst men as well. These are the demons Jesus went around casting out of people, not the devil himself, as most people probably assume. This might be stretching the belief of most people, but believe it or don't. And now with psychotronic mind control, there's another layer of deception which can easily be confused with demonic possession. I talk more about that in other material too. Now let's look at how or where these beings, like angels, might come from, or how it's possible for some other race, even beings of light, who our spiritual side is in the image of, it's said, to have created other universes, possibly even multiverses. Math, science, and the physical laws of the universe are said to be created by God, the real grand architect. The writers of the Torah and New Testament were actually told some of these things by angels, aliens, or extraterrestrials, if that makes it easier to digest, but had to record it with a limited worldview. Some of the contention of Bible truth comes from the fact that the pyramids and so much incredible architecture existed before the Exodus in the Torah, but the real Satanists and Illuminati know the actual story behind this that I already mentioned. The occult building knowledge of the ancients is what Freemasonry is based on, and they know the Nephilim helped build many ancient temples and cities. In making Lucifer their god on earth, they want to help him usurp God's throne in heaven. This isn't possible, as Satan, as he's also known by, was already cast down from heaven, but I digress. The concept of heaven is often mocked by Satanists by saying how Christians think God lives in the clouds or in the sky, always talking Christianity down as childishly as possible. I think it's pretty obvious why they do that, right? I won't go on about the alien deception and the rest I already mentioned either. The idea of the three heavens is not that hard to accept, though, if you know anything at all, even the very basics of esoteric sciences like quantum physics, a field that's largely theoretical and philosophical, even though it's arguably the pinnacle of math. The first heaven is our atmosphere, and why people have been made to feel that God lives in the clouds. Angels, as they're called, have been seen in the clouds for centuries. Here's a video I keep showing of a group of people who went out to see an orb alien, sky dance or something, replete with camera crews and fanfare. They were summoning an orb alien. Gee, that sounds strangely like what people say about seeing angels in the sky long ago, or even summoning demons. I won't get into how those are more likely the fallen kind with all the Satanists opening portals these days. I also won't address why they don't land and talk to people except to say there's nothing about you they don't already know, so why converse? They used to call them watchers, not talkers, and they were bound here as criminals anyway. They're definitely not our God in the clouds and not our friends. The second heaven is outer space, our universe itself, which was thought of as water by some, as you can see in some depictions. Make fun of the ancients all you want, but the fact that a submarine and a spaceship aren't that far removed from one another means their viewpoint wasn't completely misguided either. How would they know to make that analogy to begin with? Lucky guess? Sure. Christians generally don't connect God with living in outer space either. That's for Buck Rogers and Ming the Merciless from the Church of Satan. Why do you think he created that look? Come on. It was also timely. The Church of Satan, like the Temple of Set, was just a tool to bring the idea of spirituality down to a level of base consciousness and ego. How better to do that than in the guise of an intergalactic archenemy? Anyway, the third heaven is considered the actual heaven that lies outside our physical universe. Most Christians are well aware of this and don't believe God lives in a cloud or on Mount Olympus especially. This is where Satanists, atheists, and self-proclaimed pragmatists ask, so where did God come from then? A good counter question is, so where's the place the element or singularity that kicked off the Big Bang come from then? It's the same argument for either camp. creationism or evolution, and somewhere near the twain they shall meet, or something. It's called intelligent design. Most things categorized under evolution would be better labeled adaptation, just as an aside, and aren't necessarily a facet of evolution, a word that doesn't coincidentally have evil, the palindrome and complete opposite of love, in it. Again, they're withholding information from everyone in collegiate secret societies on upward or downward as the real pyramid scheme goes. I'm not one who subscribes to the flat earth or riding the turtle's back, no matter how fun that would actually be. You have to feel sorry for those elephants, though. What's interesting here is the idea that the atmosphere is like a containment shield in some depictions. This is actually something many feel our Earth has, not just a representation of our atmosphere, but an actual containment field. Though, if there were, I'm of the opinion it would be to keep those rebellious fallen angels trapped here with the creation they corrupted, us. Anyway, the world turtle in Hindu mythology is known as a kupara, or sometimes shukwa. Usually these things are a metaphor or misunderstood truth, such as the fact that the earth has a shell around a core, several layers actually, and they used the only associations ancient man could make, often an animal. So in its own way, it's true. Anyway, most people's concepts of heaven and hell are very two-dimensional and puerile because of the global indoctrination process of Satanism happening right now, even where they know of the 10 dimensions in quantum physics, parallel universes, etc. The establishment has very successfully divorced the ideas of the Bible from science on purpose, not just for having no evidence of God, angels, or any related material. It's just conveniently dismissed, generally as archaeology and architecture of deluded peoples, while promoting man as the end-all be-all of the universe, even when extraterrestrials are accepted. That's why the Disclosure Project was created, to mislead everyone about aliens and technology gained from them. If it doesn't have a math calculation to back it up, even a purely theoretical one, then we're taught it can't exist. We've learned that only the government or representatives thereof can tell us what reality consists of also. Part of the reason for that is to control the education system, as shown with the 21 goals of the Illuminati by Dr. John Coleman. Information dispensation is limited to a twisted truth. The Satanists who run this world need you to believe God, Christ, and the angels can't exist. And actually, while they continue to believe in fallen ones. I could go on about it, but let's keep moving. There is some amount of contention in quantum physics circles as to whether there are actually 11 dimensions rather than 10.
These go to 11.
I'm more of the opinion, like a fractal, everything returns to one and begins anew, not to espouse the satanic world serpent viewpoint or allude to reincarnation, but it does help explain why we ended up counting by factors of 10. It also explains the idea of infinity, or an 8 on its side, as shown in this universal model. That's one fascination the Freemasons have with the symbology of the number 8. There is also the Taurus universe model. All these things lend themselves to a never-ending cycle, which for many is reinforced by the change of seasons, history repeating itself, etc. The difference between the Christian God and the grand architect the Freemasons revere or worship is that their god is Lucifer, dispensing God's universal constructs, that is, ways to bend the physical laws of nature, or quote-unquote magic, and knowledge in general. This is why the Illuminati never performs a ritual, creates a false flag event, or uses the bathroom without a numerological plan involved. Their magic always has an equation, or at the very least, numerological symbology. I have to keep pounding this in because Satanists have gained control of most of the world by now, mainly through finance replacing the barter system as a way to control the plebes and serfs, the common people who are considered no better than animals, or goyim, human cattle. So the notion that everything revolves around your own personal consciousness is a load of BS. Because the cat is still alive in Schrodinger's box, even when you're not looking at it. Things don't require your observation to exist. They want you to believe this universe is all about you, even when it's something that seems generous to others, or a part of the collective consciousness. Example. There are those who believe if they think about something hard enough, it'll just manifest itself and become true. Usually that reflects itself in others showing up at your doorstep who you might have been thinking about, or some other instance often referred to as synchronicity. I won't completely shoot this down because I've had my own experiences with deja vu or precognition, if you like, which is why people believe in these things to begin with. The Satanists have managed to cut off most people from their spiritual consciousness. But what I will tell you is that you're only going to find it in any real sense with the help of Yeshua or Jesus Christ. I know this is hard for some people, but All these deceptions revolve around a spiritual war for your mind to be driven into Satanism where it isn't already. And you won't see the truth of it without spiritual help. Period. Some things you can see for yourself, though, often through occult symbolism right in front of your face. Take a look at this website explaining Saturn, Satan, or Kronos, also known as Father Time, and it helps show how Satanists view time as a trap to escape through enlightenment, like Houdini springing from a chained box. Another big-time occultist, by the way. Let me just sum that trap up by saying, again, we were created, and in a physical universe, including time, we're meant to live our lives, not seek God by leaving our bodies every day. I know many use meditation and the like just to center themselves for mental and physical healing, not reach enlightenment per se, but Satanists just want to cheat the system. Prayer is distinctly different from occult meditation anyway. They're trying to be their own God through enlightenment, to be like an angel, just a dark one. And bear in mind, the 12 days of Christmas revolve around the Roman feast of Saturnalia. Again, Satan, just as an aside, remembering that as we talk about the Catholic Church and similar New World Order systems in place. It's a gift trap that's gift-wrapped from the synagogue of Satan. Back to the time trap, though. The Garden of Eden was a physical place, not a heaven we were kicked from. We were created here on earth, and we've been passing along our spiritual side through procreation and DNA since then. Many feel reincarnation is real and that every fetus or newborn is infused with a special snowflake soul, like they got kicked from heaven or the garden. Imagine that in a population boom. That's a lot of souls to manage from the beginning of human history until now. While reincarnation can be argued from several angles, I'll only say that Enoch saw places people were sent to await the final day of judgment, which I'll talk more about later. The only biblical constant is resurrection, and that clearly defines mortality. If time is a matrix, a womb to be escaped from, Satanists seek to circumvent the laws that govern it while defining the earth as hell itself, the world serpent of infinity to be reincarnated in over and over and take advantage of the system with, rather than a place to be sent to. That's one reason most Satanists feel hell is a big party to be reborn in. The younger crowds are easier to draw into these lines of thinking by famous people in idol worship. Most of us are very ignorant of the real meaning and intent behind these philosophies. Most people's concept of hell comes from material like Milton's Paradise Lost, Dante's Inferno, and similar Age of Enlightenment works, no coincidence, or Age of Lucifer, that are by now just a part of the collective subconscious, but also our DNA. Epigenetics shows how experiences can latch onto the genome and be passed along several generations down the line, probably even a generalized worldview. They spread disinformation far and wide because they know it affects people this way. It spreads not only through institutions, but also familial and lineal ideologies. Eventually, as we went looking for heaven in outer space, the Age of Enlightenment started to take it in another direction, though. Aliens. The Masons and quote-unquote enlightened ones, Illuminati, of that age were all about the plurality of worlds. Ben Franklin and many of his contemporaries assumed that there would likely be an overseer or god for every planet of people out there, keepers if you want. This is also the backdrop of the Star Trek universe, where an ancient race seeded the galaxy. It's the same tale, just told differently. It never assumes there's anything beyond our universal confines worth worrying about, and so sells the idea of God incorrectly. Again, otherworldly beings would seem the more obvious and plausible explanation for our star gods of ancient cultures, but we're talking about advanced beings who create universes, at least ours, and to create a universe is to exist outside of it, obviously, lending to the ideas of a multiverse or omniverse. In these news articles, you can see that there is scientific and mathematical evidence of parallel universes, that our universe may have collided with another or others in a multiverse, which all basically revolves around a theory called eternal inflation. Eternal inflation, I'm quoting here, eternal inflation is a hypothetical inflationary universe model which is itself an outgrowth or extension of the Big Bang Theory. And again, I'm supporting that there is an intelligent creator who designed this universal bubble and that the Satanists and Illuminists are very well aware of this. They fight against it with terms like naturalism, mostly created in the Age of Enlightenment when the Illuminati were formed to begin with, and want to keep all arguments for intelligent design as far removed as possible. Let's consider how a bubble omniverse relates to quantum physics, or at least in basic layman's terms. Let's start with the theory of 10 dimensions.
These go to 11.
That helps to explain some of these multiverse philosophies you can read about elsewhere. Some have even tried associating the chakra chart with a 10-point energy grid, more New Age deceptions we won't get into, with Einstein defining the fourth dimension as time itself or space-time as they're one and the same phenomenon. It opened up a lot of interpretation for the additional dimensions that were later calculated. Most seem to apply it to particle physics, but there's an entire school of thought that it helps explain the additional universes beyond our own. In this model, 10 dimensions are multiverses contained within one another. Basically infinite universes, whether constantly being recreated in a fractal vortex or they infinitely exist once created. The fifth dimension would be like a series of doorways leading to the sixth dimension where the actual other universes exist. Could this be part of the reason for the ominous undertones of the number 6? Take that as you will. The seventh would be doorways leading to the eighth, where a multiverse might exist within a greater universe, and continuing to the ninth and 10th with billions upon billions of multiverses.
Millions, or billions, billions of G's, billions, tens of millions of degrees, quadrillion.
Well, maybe not that many. The 10th dimension would be the entirety of infinity, or omniverse, as it rounds back to the first, to simplify it. Some see dimensions as facets of a gem as we look through the glass darkly, as it were, but the bubble omniverse now has scientific backing, and not all universes have to be of the same size, just as no two bubbles or snowflakes are exactly alike, even if they appear so. Where the universes rub together like bubbles fluid in time, super ribbons or super strings are created. You can see from the images, at least somewhat, that I'm not the only one coming up with these things. This isn't a New Age concept about astral planes, New Earth shamans, and all that. Remember, Aleister Crowley, the Beast 666, helped promote New Age thinking in that you can be a god on your own, although Alice Bailey is credited with being its high priestess. I keep trying to emphasize that these people, brilliant as they may seem, have no clue what they're really getting themselves into. A part of the New Age deception, practically going hand in hand with it, is the concept of aliens, particularly grays. As I said about space and time being the same phenomenon, it's assumed the bending of space, warping time, would be how we'd reach other worlds, as even at the speed of light, the distances are just too great. This is what most people have been led to presume our so-called alien visitors are doing to get here, warping space and using wormholes. I already talked about Illuminati rituals, opening up portals to the abyss, the prison of fallen angels and the spirits of their demonic Nephilim offspring, and won't go on about that. But now that gravity waves have been proven beyond doubt, at least so far as we're told, I thought this would be interesting to note. On February 11th, 2016, 4 days after Super Bowl 50, the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory LIGO collaboration announced the first observation of gravitation waves. Because these waves were generated from a black hole merger, it was the first ever direct detection of a binary black hole merger. This has huge implications for bending temporal laws, or the attempt thereof, the black sun of Nazi fame and its current satanic following, probably CERN and the LHC, and more you can look up about time and black holes in relation to Satanism and New Age ideals. A black hole reaches into infinity, and this is important to them in the idea of consciousness. Time is a moving stream of consciousness to get swept away in and can't be dammed or diverted. Even when you see in advance, you can't defeat God's linear plan of this physical universe. Try changing some deja vu moment you have sometime. Deja vu being a recalling of a dream or a vision of the future you had previously but were unaware. It helps explain how Revelation works out and how they knew in advance these things would happen, and how there's a book of life they can peek at the end of existence with. It's relative to what's known as precognition, but we can't change the consciousness of others, not even our own. And mind control doesn't count. It doesn't change time itself. We're swept up in the stream. I'm sure the Illuminati hope to bend or break these universal laws of God and defeat infinity itself by learning more about black holes and gravitation waves, thus being able to change pasts and futures. This is why Luciferian Masons and other Satanists go out of their way to dumb down the public and push our consciousness down to a base animal level. They don't want you knowing God in any way, so the few people who get past them are labeled psychics as well as dissidents, terrorists, troublemakers, and the like. The Illuminati employ psychics, occultists really, in an attempt to reach godhood as well as continue to practice rituals and witchcraft. That's why there are whispers of sorcerers sitting at the top of the pyramid, not to rule out demonology. They attack it from any angle they can get results from, though often what's termed as magic could be substituted with psychic, such as out-of-body, sometimes called remote viewing, or telepathy, telekinesis, precognition, viewing the Akashic record to some. Look that one up yourself, AKASHIC record. Mankind tends to use spiritual phenomena against one another, and it's because we're more animal than spiritual, as I said. That's easily summed up by our technology far outpacing our sociological development, as well as the greed of egomaniacal control freaks, but also has to do with the fallen angels that occult societies have been pandering to for ages. See the book of Enoch, where he details secret knowledge given by the fallen ones, and that may only be a partial account. Chapter 8, verse 3. They've been working through secret societies well before the Brotherhood of the Snake in Sumeria, before any so-called Atlantis, and have been undermining humanity since we were created. The fallen ones, or Anunnaki, like the elite ruling class of the NWO, feel we are inferior and would be better off enslaved or at least coerced toward their particular version of perfection. Enslaving humanity is a little like usurping God's throne by controlling his creation itself, us and our DNA, hence all the satanic mind control. There is an entire camp of thought that Anunnaki or fallen ones came from another planet to mate with women, if not another galaxy or universe. And now we have a hybrid species running around in politics, the corporate world, and other arenas. This does back up passages in Enoch about the children of the fallen angels bringing tyranny on mankind in the last days. Some believe the story of Lilith, Adam's first wife, or of Eve mating with a quote-unquote serpent, the seed of evil responsible for the line of Cain. Others feel it's shadow government cloning and creating reptilians from animal hybridization or similar, not extraterrestrials or angelic intervention. Many also feel psychic phenomena is directly related to aliens and hybrids, though it's an inherent spiritual side of us given by our Creator. This is a distinction I need to make. It wouldn't make much sense for a complete hybrid side of humanity to want to enslave itself in a hive-minded cyborg consciousness of a beast system or AI mainframe. They're too individually arrogant to agree to that. They wouldn't do it willingly anyway, but we're definitely headed toward that system. So what I'm saying, like in my other material, it's more a spiritual form of possession, which could more easily work through hybrid bloodlines, I would concede, but Jesus did not go around casting out aliens from people. In fact, there's no mention of hybrid serpents among us or anything that would help expose them in the Bible, even a parable. So it's demonic possession that takes us to an animal level and blinds our spiritual side. What some call enlightenment, I suppose. This is really the way in which the fallen angels and demon Nephilim bound in the earth can still affect us, spiritually, not to mention Satanists constantly trying to make contact with them. Satanists, as well as New Age adherents, try to reach a spiritual state of enlightenment, or pure spirituality, ignorant and innocent as it may be to some. But only God can give the light. There is no such thing as reaching enlightenment or being an ascended master. It just happens when God gives it. See Enoch chapter 39, verse 9, or even John chapter 1, verses 1 through 5 to sum it up best. I won't quote. That's why I'm saying heaven is not a natural state of consciousness or place, and can only be arrived at with God's approval. We can't get there on our own, and we do get judged. There was a time, just before the deluge, when God said he was sorry that he'd even made mankind. We'd become so evil and dangerous to ourselves. For a very long time, I was a proponent of the melting ice age, having caused the world to be flooded over 10,000 plus years ago. But I personally learned that isn't the case, practical and logical as that may seem. Even the Chinese have a story about the flood, complete with Noah character. As I've stated, all ancient cultures got their ideas from the same place in the world before the Tower of Babel. It wasn't just a campfire story. God flooded the world because we were brutal, cruel, vicious animals, and while a portion of the modern population may have grown beyond that animal bloodlust, a significant portion of us haven't. Probably 33% at least. The reptilian portion of the brain, no coincidence there, creates a fight or flight response to what we don't understand or agree with, leading to megalomaniacal conquests, the getting of goats, subversion, and on and on. Regardless of what I said about the Eye of Semiramis Venus Lucifer on the back of a US dollar bill, it is a catch-all for the watchers in reality. That's why it's an eye, particularly Lucifer's. That's why there's an Eye of Horus, really of Set, in Egyptian versions. The Masons worship all the fallen angels, though, and that's one of their signs to show allegiance. This all goes back before Noah, Babel, and Nimrod. The grand architect of the Freemasons is the devil, though he was only ever given God's lesser magic to tempt man with. I mentioned this before and couldn't find the passage for it, but it's in the book of Enoch. It says in chapter 16, verse 3, quote, "Say to them," to the watchers, the fallen angels, "you were in heaven, but all the mysteries of heaven had not been revealed to you, and you knew worthless ones," that is, lesser magic, "and these in the hardness of your hearts you have made known to the women," their wives, mothers of Nephilim giants, "and through these mysteries women and men work much evil on the earth." This clearly refers to the spell casting and whatnot mentioned in chapter 8, verse 3, knowledge given by the fallen ones. While it's easy to blame women for this, not only were people very ignorant back then and easily manipulated, but the roles would also be reversed if men were the pregnable half of our species. Just food for thought. When these spiritual entities came into the material side of the universe, they would be just as bound by its physical laws as anyone else, regardless of their spirituality. They know ways to bend those laws, even break a few, and that's what Satanists, Illuminati, Masons, and others pandered to them for, the lesser magic. It was never about who built all the ancient temples and pyramids. It was always about who gave the knowledge to do it in the first place. Interuniversal criminals who opted out of heaven beyond our universe to tamper directly with our world and species, our DNA. It's why they're criminals. As always, see Jude 1:6, among other references to their binding on earth, which is really just paraphrasing Enoch. Enoch tried to petition the case of the Watchers to the Lord, but was told it should instead be the Watchers pleading the case of man. We were given free will to act as we wanted, mostly without interference from alien influences, until those who took up occult practices subverted humankind by constantly trying to enslave everyone, even now with the Illuminati. People always whine about how God doesn't deal with these people, Satan, or babysit us in general, when it's man who's supposed to deal with these problems, especially in a spiritual or emotional sense. How else would we grow then, or evolve our souls, as some people feel? When God deals with mankind, it's usually in the form of a calamity no one wants to be a part of, good or evil, because it's usually the consumption of man's spiritual side by overwhelming evil that prompts a good spanking, and spanking equals death. God has mostly, up to this point, just kept humanity from caving in on its collective evil animalistic self. I've been over so much corruption and other material, I think I may have only left out child sex slave rings from my list of man's sins and evils. If that isn't a reason for corporal punishment, even death, then I guess we're living the deluded lives of Satanists. Evil pervades like a cancer, and if we want God to come down out of heaven to cut it out for us, then expect the worst, because it will be for man's evil that he does. They knew how we'd egotistically develop in the long term, and this was all planned out well before Revelation was even written, because they saw the Illuminati thuggy mafia, synagogue of Satan, and a hierarchy of evil serving Lucifer coming long ago. They knew greed and ego would consume most of us, along with a lack of empathy for one another, because we're 2/3 animal and 1/3 spirit, to simplify it, and why 33, 66, and numerology like that is so important, especially a 3. It's part of the Trinity of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, also a metaphor for mankind. It doesn't represent family, and why there's no goddess figure such as Mary included. She was immortal, remember? Jesus was the conception of a good angel, God really, instead of a fallen one. The Holy Trinity is supposed to be about the nature of man and woman, a percentage of spirituality, and our connection to the heaven outside our known universe. So, where is heaven then? Is it merely a state of consciousness in that timeless void of the super ribbon between universes? Is it in that infinite quantum state where the 10th dimension fractally rounds off to the first? Sadly, most of us will never know the answer to that question. Take that as you will. Believe it or don't. It's not so much where heaven is as where you'll end up when that spiritual side you were given doesn't die with your body. Enoch was shown 4 hollow places, translations vary, by those who've been termed archangels, Raphael in particular. I know many consider Enoch to be the recording angel Metatron, especially followers of the Babylonian Talmud, or even that he and the Messiah are one and the same. And I won't get into all that, but Enoch was one of the first to actually deal with these beings of light, representatives of our spiritual creator. Satanists like to blaspheme Enoch as much as Yeshua, thus Enochian language and sex magic rituals based on his name. It's all a load of BS. and mostly the fabrications of Dr. John D. Look him up if you care. Rest assured, Enoch is not the robot in disguise or a transformer named Metatron. Enoch saw 4 realms, we'll say, where the souls of the dead were sent. One is presumably for exemplary believers of God's word, or those just seen as virtuous in their own way. The second would likely be for those who were decent and honest, or at least trying to be for most of their lives, while the third is the opposite, where those souls were more consistently on the side of wrong, a place of infinite regret. The fourth would obviously then be for the vile, a convenient anagram for evil, for the Satanists of all orders and the sickening animals of humankind, people who get off on pointing ultrasonic frequency LRADs and microwaves at 4-year-olds like my son, for instance, and feed on death. I showed a few gang stalkers at the end of my main video. It's almost assuredly a place of madness and torment, not a party house. This is no place for people who think they're neutral. We are by nature more consistently on one side of that balance or equilibrium than the other throughout life. And it's usually based on a total worldview rather than specific instances of wrongdoing that label us good or evil. That's just my own opinion, though, I suppose. What happens in these places Enoch saw is not really discussed and is purely speculative, though there is mention of souls petitioning God for one reason or another, particularly of Abel petitioning against the children of Cain on earth. When your body dies, your undying spiritual consciousness would go to one of these places, where the idea of purgatory really comes from, which it really isn't for the good people according to a lot of NDEs or near-death experiences, while awaiting the final day of judgment of God, the great and terrible day of the Lord. It's not as simple as picking heaven or hell, though your flight may have one hell of a layover while awaiting actual judgment. And once you're on that spiritual side, you're in their world, as it were, and I think it's safe to say you don't want to be where Lucifer's people are sent. Run to Jesus if you're not there already, kids. You'll be glad you did. Believe it or don't.
You over here! Run! Run!
What's up? It's the one and only double NNOD, Diva Mrs., your girl Candy Kisses. Tune in to Say That, Fridays around 7 p.m., double NNOD, New Nation Radio. We is radio. Say that.
Leaving all the competition in the dust.
Not a human, not afraid. I will not comply. I will not obey. See, the plan is to depopulate, but the body can overcome anything. Fuck what the doctor say. Fans shaking me like Bobby, wake up. Chip on my shoulder, I was holding a grudge. I wanted to be loved more than I wanted to love, but hey, what can I say? Fame's a hell of a drug. Born a slave to a tyrant. It's gonna take more than just petitions and riots. Are we headed for a future of being indebted to credit? Hoping the next leader elected will trump the one we beheaded? The words the wealthiest rappers will never utter. Them checks they throw at a nigga's a motherfucker. Seems like the future was brighter when I was younger. Seems like the future was brighter when I was younger. I'm torn between performing and rewriting the norm. Am I born to transform or just to die and move on? Be the light that people mourn while reciting all my songs. To the battle I am sworn, sword, dog, armor worn, beaten down to the point for being different. You question old tradition, they just say you superstitious. Like a snake that eats its own tail. The economic system, public schools the babysitter, healthcare's the modern day Adolf Hitler. Fact check. Ever since the internet, molestation multiplied by 1,000,000%. Your aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews all online with the shit. History shows for speaking up, my whole life is at risk. Yeah, I'm cocky, kamikaze, who gon' stop me? Anunnaki, Illuminati, neo-Nazis, they do me how they do Cosby. When you winning, they gon' love you till you lose like Ronda Rousey. Every revolutionary, they execute them proudly. It go JFK, no, MLK, no. Since Lenin got smoke, it's clear they don't want us to have hope. They tore down our houses, replaced it with dope, and say that it's our fault. Fuck. So you wanted to fight, so you wanna be brave, so you found the light and you've seen the truth and you feel betrayed. Well, it comes with cost, a price too large, as if we're really just born to die. I'd rather not have been born. Stay in school, they said. Use your tools, they said. But being on TV looks pretty cool, I said. That's true, I said. Must I remind myself? These corporations ain't your friends, you should've signed yourself. They, who are they? They are us, we are they. The pyramid start at the top, we just mimic and behave the same way. Babylon brainwaves, human incarcerations, the modern day slave trade. Cost of college, cost of living, so high you can't maintain. All you can do is sell pills, drink tea, and waste train. Struggle to make mortgage and re-up by payday. And the wealthiest families split it up 8 ways, okay. So you wanna be brave, so you found the light and you've seen the truth and you feel betrayed. Well, it comes with cost, a price too large, as if we're really just born to die. I'd rather not have been born at all.
Leaving all the competition in the dust.